Okay, you said let's start.
Yeah, we're starting. We're doing this. It's happening. We are recording.
Oh boy. Okay. God, this is what I deal with on a daily basis.
It is exactly what you deal with on a daily basis.
You can't even get a proper soundboard. You have to play a soundboard into your microphone.
Hey, I could do the right thing, which would be the good thing, but sometimes it's just fun to do this because, well, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
Well, considering the fact that we're doing this entire episode again because I fucked up the audio on the last one, and now you're starting the whole podcast up by fucking up the audio on this one, it's awesome.
How am I messing up the audio?
Yeah, well, I'm bringing
a note of levity to an already dark podcast.
An already dark podcast. Well, if you were with us last week, you got a great episode on Captain America 374.
Oh, yes.
And Daredevil showed up in the middle of Captain America 374.
Yes.
And was like, hey, we had an adventure.
Yes.
Check out Daredevil to see what we did.
Yes.
And it all happened before that issue.
Whoa. That's right. It did, because it was before. See what we did?
Or was it in the middle?
Well, I mean, kind of. It was in the middle of the story, perhaps in the middle of that storyline, or maybe even before that story even took off. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
But we don't really know. Maybe it was when Agent Carter called Captain America to let him know that the Black Widow would be looking for him, and then called Black Widow and was like, hey, Captain America's out here with Diamondback lady, and so you shouldn't attack them.
That didn't happen.
Oh, okay. So
it could
maybe
have happened.
It was before Battlestar went back to see his mentor.
Yes.
And got captured.
Yes.
But after Captain America yelled at everyone.
Maybe.
What if Captain America never met the super racist character called Napalm?
Then we might not ever have a story.
Oh, okay. So that would have been a bad what if story. Are you going to keep doing that?
Yes.
Great. I had to take car rides with this person.
Yes.
I just want everyone to know that who's listening. So we are now at Daredevil 283, which is happening somewhere in the timeline of Captain America in 1990.
Yes. 1990 something. Cap and Daredevil are hanging out, having a buddy hang in upstate New York.
Well, anyway, Daredevil is on the front, and because it's his magazine.
Yeah.
And Captain America is also there too.
Yeah.
And
it looks like
they're holding up a mountain.
They're holding up a mountain. It looks like they're saving the guy from the Gremlins movie who has the snowplow. When the Gremlins attack him, and he's like, "No, go fight these guys."
That's entirely possible.
He looks related. He kind of looks like him, but I could be wrong.
Well, in this case, I don't know how Captain America and Daredevil have the superpowers to hold up a mountain. What are Daredevil's superpowers?
Mountain holding and looking awesome in a red suit.
No, I was sort of seriously, what are?
Oh yeah, I mean he's got the ability to sense things, and he's heightened senses, and he's essentially all the Ninja Turtles wrapped into one.
I see. So he likes pizza.
Yeah, as if you didn't know that already.
I didn't. This is the first Daredevil comic book I've ever read.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, he likes pizza. He's all the Ninja Turtles wrapped into one. He can't see, so he uses his heightened ability of sense.
Okay. I may have read a Daredevil comic book that was part of a crossover or something, but this is the first one I've ever intentionally picked up and read because it was Daredevil. And in this case, we're only reading it because it was part of the Captain America storyline. So I guess technically it's still in crossover territory.
Technically, yeah. But after reading this, you're like, oh man, maybe I should read some more Daredevil.
No.
Yes.
I mean, this is infinitely better than the Captain America comics that we were reading, but
right.
At no point did I think I should go pick up the entire run.
Not the whole entire run, but more.
Yeah, sure, maybe.
More. You should read more.
Well, and Nocenti is a definitively better writer than...
Yes. This is true.
Well, anyway, we've got a man wearing the American flag as a cape. And he's like, listen to me, America. I am an immigrant. I came to the country and I had a dream. I dreamt the American dream. I dreamt it a wonderful invention, the world. Wow. I don't want to read all this. Let's just say, I know, I'm trying. It's a rough day, everyone. I can't even read dialogue. But what I can tell you is this comic is called The American Nightmare, but this guy had a dream. And it was written by Ann Nocenti, penciled by Mark Bagley. Williamson and Morgan are the inkers. It sounds like a cigarette. Williamson and Morgan 100s.
Yeah.
Clem Robbins is on letters. Sheil Rasche is on colors. Ralph Machio is the editor. The same editor as the Captain America books.
Yeah.
There we go. What, did Ralph Machio just get all the shitty books that weren't selling? Was that?
Maybe he got all the good books.
Well, admittedly, that, not selling doesn't mean you're a shitty book, right? Some of the best comics of all time didn't sell. But, Tom Defalco is the editor. Thank you for Spider Clones.
Yes.
Well, anyway, this guy's here, and he's like,
dream
this is what
is
I
a
think
nightmare.
of the American dream. And he looks pretty chill in this picture. Like, he's just standing on some steps, right? Do you think he's at in Washington, D.C., or?
I think, it could be, if anything, he's it could be in Washington, D.C., it could be in Philadelphia, on the Rocky Steps, or whatever,
Oh, well, if you turn the page, it doesn't look so good.
I'm in the wrong view.
Normally, you are usually normally in the wrong view. But,
No, he's jumping off a building.
Jumps off the building with the American flag, and Captain America is standing at the bottom going, "We're too late." And Daredevil goes, "Victor." And what is going on with Daredevil's face?
He's got a 5 o'clock shadow.
It looks like they just drew straight lines on his face.
Yes, it does look like straight lines on his face.
Is that how you draw hair? I don't know. Seriously asking. I honestly,
I'm looking into my how to draw people book, and it says you could do that.
You have a how to draw people book sitting next to your computer?
I do.
I don't think it says you can do that, though.
Sure it does. Are you going to contest the how to draw people book?
Well, who wrote/drew the how to draw people book?
Some cool dude.
Okay. Well, we turn the page and we have Captain America embracing.
That's not Captain America.
Daredevil. He's hanging out in the woods.
Yeah.
With Mr. Immortal.
Some woods people.
And the guy that holds the door in Game of Thrones.
Oh, Hodor. And
one of the druggy kids from the Teen Titans books.
Uh-huh.
And it looks like, is that Godiva, from the Super Friends comics?
Could be.
She had really long hair.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know. She's wearing some epic 80s stretch pants.
Very.
I think you would wear those, actually.
Oh, probably. I have.
Yeah, this is very clear.
I have some stretch pants.
You're going to wear this to the next convention we go to, right?
Yeah, I'll pull them out.
Well, anyway, I have no idea who these people are, and
I don't either.
Just leaves anyway. So
he just jams out. He's like, "See you guys later," and they're like, "He's so cool. He's so broody."
We must have found out in the previous issues how awesome he was, but we don't really know here. Yeah. It's a transition.
Yeah.
And then we see Captain America just posing and walking in a city area.
Yeah, just walking down the street, being cool.
And they're in upstate New York. How would you, for growing up on the East Coast originally, define upstate New York? That seems like a large, broad area to me.
So, when people think New York, they think the city, upstate New York is definitely not that. It's more more rural-ish. So, I guess in comparison to for us in the Pacific Northwest, it'd be Bellingham to Seattle.
Okay, so I guess that's why Daredevil's in the woods, but then Captain America is walking through what looks like New York City.
Oh no, it's like like I said, Bellingham to Seattle, so it's still got a city, but it's not the city, and it's out of the city, but it's not metropolitan.
I've been in a lot of Bellingham-sized cities and never saw a newspaper stand.
Did you go there in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s?
Yes.
And did you walk the streets?
In fact, I've never seen a newspaper stand outside of Washington, D.C. Yeah.
I've seen newspaper stands in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago.
I believe you're okay. And Bellingham.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, it's depending on the time frame. And I'm looking at the kind of stuff that this newspaper stand is selling. It could be, I've seen when I was when I went up to the college up there, they had a lot of various things on the quad and stuff like that. And they had, I wouldn't say it was a newsstand that looked like this, but they were passing out magazines and other things like that in a
well, this guy seems to be selling them. So, well, yeah. Anyway, this correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems to be like two people that live in New York drawing what they think upstate New York might look like if it was New York.
If it's Syracuse or something like that, or Buffalo, then it's more like a city, right? But when I think upstate,
is Buffalo upstate New York?
Yeah, Buffalo.
Or is like Syracuse.
Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse, they're all considered upstate New York, and so they're all city-like.
Well, this is what I was trying to narrow down here, though, right? Like, you're basically saying anything that's not New York City is upstate New York.
Yes.
Like the entire state.
Yeah, but most people that are like, oh, when they think New York, they think like, oh, it's like the city. But then you have these areas that are like, they might have a downtown area that has a specific area that might seem like they've got them. Dude.
Okay, well, I want this to be Buffalo then. That's fine.
Okay. There you go.
All right, so now Captain America is walking through the town, and he gets a magazine and he squishes it up. And he's like, not again. We broke international law invading Panama. Now we're breaking the law again with this fabricated drug war. I'm so very confused.
Well, because he's seeing something that, he's like, oh, wow. It's I explained it a lot better on the last time we recorded this episode.
I don't know about that, because Captain America's been fighting the drug war in his own magazine.
He's been fighting the drug war in his own magazine, but maybe this is a moment in which he realizes that, quite honestly, impossibly, there might be an issue with how they're going about it. Now, this is why I believe that this is either not in the same time frame of the magazine that we're reading right now, i.e. slightly beforehand, and that's why he goes out to, maybe he's not trying to quote unquote change things, but he's calling out not the streets of America, but he's saying that they're going after places that are not that they're in Central America, South America.
But in the next podcast, which we certainly haven't recorded yet, but in the next podcast, we realize that, which is the next issue of Captain America, we realize that Daredevil comes to see Captain America because of how Captain America is reacting in this issue. So they established this is in the middle of the other story, in the middle of the Streets of Poison story. Like, they established that in 374 and 375.
Well,
I'm just saying they firmly established this story fits in the timeline.
Then at some point, the editors who are the same editors for both books should have had a discussion with their writing teams for these two different books and said, this is what Cap is going through. Make it fit. Because they are it's like building, putting Legos and Lincoln Logs together.
That's one good way to put it. Yeah, like, I was thoroughly confused by this. Well, as Captain America gets mad, he gets unmad because this guy comes in with this cool car made of all recycled American products.
Yeah, garbage car.
And it runs on harmonics. It can fly.
Harmonics.
And it doesn't require oil.
What? Oh, he's going to get Big Oil so mad at him now.
And this guy made it just because he had a dream. He calls it the Harmony car.
Ah, it'd be better if it ran on Harmony. But that'd be corny.
This is the point where when I edit the podcast and Audacity takes out the silence, like, we should probably leave it there.
But why?
So
I didn't know what that button did.
Yeah,
sure. I didn't know what it did. It just like, it looked like a face. So I just like hit the button. I thought it was a laughter. It was not a laughter.
Anyway, Captain America is thoroughly impressed with the Harmony car, and it flies away, and it works. And then Captain America looks up and is like, "Hey, that's Daredevil. Why is he here?"
But that Daredevil looks.
Why is Captain America there?
Yeah, why is Captain America there when he should be in his own town doing his own thing? And why does Daredevil look like Spider-Man? I'm confused. A lot of confusion here.
And why does Captain America why is he concerned about what Daredevil is doing? But like, I'm just do we ever get an explanation of why Captain America just randomly shows up in this town?
Why is he following? Well, because he heard. I will tell you why. Okay, you want to know?
Sure.
He had a craving for Hostess pies. He heard there was Hostess pies here. And he also heard that the Hulk was on the hunt for him too. So he had to get him before the Hulk did. Because that guy can throw down a serious hurt on Hostess pies. And if he didn't get there first, Cap wouldn't get any.
And if he gave the Hostess pie wrappers to this dude, he could make a car.
Exactly. And by giving them to him, that is Harmony. And this car runs on Harmony.
Oh, God.
Or harmonics. I don't know how harmonics works. Is it like magnets?
Isn't that how the Vulture powers his costume?
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll have to look it up.
Aren't we just making a Vulture car?
Yeah. Oh, it's a Vulture car. Could be. It floats. It flies. It's made of garbage.
This whole idea is very old in Marvel Comics. Like, dates back to like 64.
Could be. I thought. I mean, like, didn't Captain America like fly around on a floating bicycle?
It's not powered by harmonics. It was powered by quiet engines. They clearly covered that in 372.
Cat's farts.
I'm just saying. That's what they said. I can only go with what Mark Grunwald tells me in the books.
Fair enough.
What he tells me in the books.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, you could well be right. There could be a lot of harmony going on. Like,
Cat's
there's farts. A lot of harmony between these writers and this editing team. Clearly,
I know.
Right?
I know. See, the more I point out these things, the less and less you like the book.
I know. You know, there was a point where I actually sort of liked this book, like as an interlude.
You're like, oh, this is great. And then I point out a couple things. You're like, whoa, why?
Honestly, as a standalone story, it's fine if I ignore everything else that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
The bad part is there's all these other things going on and they choose to reference it, right? If they had just wrote a story where Captain America just shows up in this book and they gave him some reason for being there, and then Daredevil never shows up in Captain America.
Any other book,
yeah, we're golden. But this is weird.
You just got it's Daredevil's hanging out doing his thing in upstate New York, which doesn't make sense to me unless there was like a preference, it prefaced it in the previous book, which we didn't read, so we wouldn't know. And then we don't know why Cap is here.
Well, and you may have been reading, you know, maybe they're trying to get Daredevil's sales up. They're running Captain America twice a week, so maybe they're trying to get eyes on Daredevil over here, which would make sense.
Yeah, that's true. So, you know,
and Bullseye is in the Captain America story, so
Bullseye is and
show up at some point.
Yeah, Bullseye's a Daredevil bad guy,
and Daredevil's a big fan of Bullseye.
I don't think he's a big fan.
Well, anyway, this car's made, and we flip a couple pages, and bingo, bango. Now this dude is having all sorts of trouble. The IRS is on his ass. The FBI shows up to his
immigration.
House. They're trying to get him out of the country.
Yeah,
don't make something that works.
Don't make something that works and flies on dreams and garbage, because
Big Oil is coming to get you.
Yeah, the FBI.
He's coming to get you. Nancy Reagan saw this in a message from her astrologer, and she's got the IRS and the FBI on it.
Yeah. Do you think Do you, do you think that she contacted Ramtha?
Probably.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think any of these listeners know who Rantha is, so we probably should just slide right past that joke.
All right.
If you're from the Northwest, you know who Rantha is. If you've been to Yelm, Washington, otherwise, you're listening to this and you're like, what the fuck are they talking about?
I know.
Trust us, you don't want to know.
You don't want to know.
Well, anyway, Daredevil is spying on this dude from a tree, and he sees the FBI, and
Captain America is spying on Daredevil.
Yeah. He knows he's lying based off his heartbeat, and he hears another heartbeat, which is Captain America.
Double heartbeat, double rainbow.
And so he identifies him, he's Captain America. And he also says, what's that odor? It's cocaine on the G-Man?
Yeah.
Does he mean to plant it?
Yeah. He's going to go in there and put the drugs in the guy's house, so he's got a reason to arrest him.
Based on our read so far of the story, how do you think Ann Nocenti feels about the government?
Not so great. She thinks the government is bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
thanks, Greg, for that outstanding analysis.
My assumption is that I feel like she has a view on the government and a view on corporations, and would like to put that into this book. And I don't necessarily think that she's 100% wrong. So
yeah, it's interesting, right? Like it's an interesting. I don't want to bring modern day politics into this, to be clear, but I'm thinking of the politics of the 90s
of the time. It
was a very interesting balance between the progressive left and the governmental left, right?
Yeah.
And can you criticize the government at the same time you want to expand the rights of people through the government? And of course, it's easy targets for them because they're targeting Reagan and then Bush, right? So, I think we're in 1990. We're in the fledgling Bush administration. That'd be George Herbert Walker Bush. And not W. It's not what I said.
Oh.
HW.
HW.
God. Not the W Bush. That's a whole different discussion on government corruption.
That's a different. I'm sorry, everybody. I heard.
You heard HW, like Herbert Walker, and you went W.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was like, oh no, I was like, bad me.
But anyway,
sorry.
Anyway, I'm gonna break that. I'm coming to your house and I'm breaking it. So better hide it before I come see.
My wife
visit
bought
your
this
house
for
again.
me. She bought this for me. She said it would be fun.
Well, I own a hammer, and
she said you would like it.
There's one, no way she said that I would like it, and two, I own hammers.
I've seen you use hammers. You're not very good with them.
Exactly. That's how I destroy things. So, well, now we're in the house. And honestly, you should have used this on one of the other issues, because at least this issue has something we can talk about.
Yes.
Like, you could have used that on the next podcast that we certainly have recorded, or the one after that.
Well, I just got it.
The stories get really amazing.
I just got it.
Well,
it's a new toy.
You can give it back. So
I can't give it back. It's a gift.
Now we have Captain America and Daredevil go in, and they run the fake FBI agent off because he doesn't have a warrant and things.
Yeah, get out of here.
We're holding up America, not the kind of America that invades Panama, but the kind of America that supports the rights of immigrants and everyone who lives here.
That's right.
Now, admittedly, too, right? This is consistent with the this is consistent. You read them, not me, but you explained to me, like, it's consistent with the Captain America before, right? That went away before U.S. Agent.
Yeah. It's very consistent.
Because Captain America leaves because he has like a crisis of conscience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he feels like things aren't they're falling apart. They're not going. They're not fitting together the way that he's like, he's a man out of time, right? So, and as things are progressively moving forward, and he's like, wait a minute, what are we doing? I don't feel like everything I stand for is incorrect. And that's, a lot of what we're going to see in this book is really stands on that too.
So what you're saying is, as women and minorities gain more rights and we have more freedoms for gay people, Captain America is like, that's not right, and I've got to retire?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like he was talking about with the war on drugs and being misplaced. And what are we fighting for? We're not taking care of things that we should be taking care of. He's like, we're fighting the wrong things. We're doing the wrong stuff.
I see. So it's more of a foreign policy issue.
Yeah.
Or international policy.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, everybody has a different take on Cap at the time. So maybe I'd have to take a look at some of those issues that you just brought up, take a look at some of those issues in which maybe those things might be addressed and say, oh, maybe you're right, Dan. Maybe they're putting that on the Cap, and that's why the Cap left.
Well, and I'm also just, I mean, I'm being a jerk, but I think like when you need to look at what is mentioned and what isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got like Captain America, like, man, the drug war is terrible, and I'm having a crisis of consciousness of how America acts and things like that. But, you know, what are they mentioning and what aren't they? And of course, you know, the comics code keeps them from mentioning some of the more important things too, right? So
I think the topics that you touched on don't get touched on in comics the way that
at this time
they don't get touched on. I think like 10 years later they do. And I think the writing teams and editorial teams would be a little more progressive in the way that they would write Cap and how he would deal with that.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
Just to say though, I mean, I know we're in the Daredevil book, but as long as we're bringing this up, right? Like in the Captain America book, the three most powerful women, right, in the book are Agent Carter, who just got screamed at by Captain America.
Yeah.
And told she was worthless and is a government agent, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was a government agent. Now she works for the Avengers.
Yeah.
A villain and another villain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one's from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So that could speak to, you know, dissatisfaction with how America's, you know, perception of women. But I don't know that they're enhancing it by having a cat fight over a scooter that flies. I don't know that they're moving. Like, to me, that's not the best portrayal of the issue. Obviously, I mean, there are comics that are far worse and they're treatment of women, right? So I don't want to get too far down that road.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you want to,
there were no women in refrigerators here, right?
Bad Girls Inc.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm sure we that would be a whole bag of snakes that you could get into and see what the portrayals are there. I think with what we're seeing in the Captain America book with Diamondback and Black Widow, you've got two women who are one. Basically, yes, you're correct. They're both they had villainous storylines. They're turning on that and coming back around to more of a, I want to say like a good. They're turning to a good storyline and trying to do good stuff.
But it's the femme fatale storyline, right? What do you do with the femme fatale when the readers like that character, but they're not a femme fatale anymore?
You add another one in,
or you kill them, Electro.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely. You're right. It's definitely one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, we've got a bad portrayal, or we've got you've got your situation where obviously Cap's got something going on, and that's why he's treating everybody poorly.
Cap is here.
But yes, since you brought it up, I mean.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's important though, and I would say, you know, Ann Nocenti, I think is we're going to keep reading the story and see how Ann attacks some of the issues going on in the United States at the time, right? Specifically, you know, capitalism, big oil. But even in this story, we have Edith Bunker, basically, right? Who, you know, the unnamed wife of Victor. Oh, Nora, she is named. It's Nora. I didn't find a name. Come meet my wife Nora, but basically playing the Edith Bunker role of, oh, Archie, he's so silly. He just dreamed this up in a dream and he bumbled his way into solving this problem. while she sits at home in her dress and shawl. Like it's kind of weird. And, Archie Bunker hasn't been on the air for 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But in syndication and reruns, it hadn't stopped.
Yeah, it does feel a little. And again, I don't want to. I think that Nocenti does a much better job attacking some of these issues, right, than we're seeing in the main top stories. So
I mean, in the next page or two, it's just like a huge diatribe of Cap's where he talks about the situation that America's in with all these different things and trying to, basically get Daredevil to understand why he's frustrated with this stuff.
Yeah, and specifically the difference in the Nocenti book, right? She says Captain America does say, "I noticed the rage of the poor, angry at the obvious wealth around them and the racism. Yes, but so much hate between races, between classes. There's such a gap between the rich and poor. In New York, it's like a third world country living at the feet of elite corporate kings," right? So we are setting up this story, right, with the commentary. But leading up into this story, we got none of this.
Yeah.
None of this is coming from Captain America. He's just like, people that sell drugs are bad. I'm going to go kill them. Except for the fact that a lot of the people potentially selling drugs, who are named like Jerkweed and Fuckwad and whatever else by Mark Grunwald, are the exact people serving at the feet of the elite corporate kings in his book, and are just doing that so they can fucking eat.
Yeah.
And that's what so like,
that's what drives crazy, because you're like, Cap, don't you understand? Don't you see that the other half of the coin that you're fighting against is the same half?
And on one hand, where Ann Nocenti, again complimenting Ann, right, writes this nice like monologue, right, and discussion between Captain America and Daredevil. In the other book, which is Captain America's book, if you sold a drug in your life, your name is Jerkweed.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're completely dehumanized, right? You don't even have a name. In Mark Grunwald's world, you have no name.
Right.
Yes, next I go on a Fight Club rant, right? But so yeah, I guess, and that's the stark contrast. Like, this is, I like this story, right? Like, the inconsistencies we're pointing out are the editorial inconsistencies across Marvel, right? And across the two books.
I mean, if you're going to marry up two books to have the two headliners cross paths a couple times through their stories, make sure that the storylines are consistent between the two, and at least having the talking points being on the same level and page and with the same tone.
And spoiler alert, when Daredevil goes back to Captain America books, none of this is talked about.
No. And
none. Zero. It's like it didn't exist.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating. I mean, that's where I know your frustration's at. And then the same with like the Captain America. His whole entire monologue is great. If you read this book and you get this monologue, it's great. But you go back to his book and it's as if he never had this realization and doesn't even have this understanding of the current world's situation and why things are not good, because he's on a totally different level. And it's not even checked.
Well, we're gonna get into it, and we do get a couple of comments that hint at one for this story. Captain America says toward the end of his little monologue discussion, his car threatens the oil industry. We're referring to Victor's car. This country stands for progress and technology, but what it really stands for is planned obsolescence, right? So we're previewing what's going to happen in the rest of this book. And he mentions the military-industrial complex. But then Daredevil, down at the last panel, is like, he usually stays so cool and restrained. I've never seen him so rarefied, so outspoken. Even what he's saying, I would have guessed he'd view such ideas as subversive. So to say these things, Daredevil thinks there's something wrong with him.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll get into the what's wrong with him in future podcasts. But I don't want to spoil the story as we go through. But it's
I think this is just pointing that Daredevil's pointing out something is up with Cap. I can't put a finger on it, and that's hence why we have the crossover later on, which is good.
Right.
But this is the only moment in which this type of thing is even touched on is in this page, really.
Yeah, and then we get to the middle of the page, and this is where I will critique Ann Nocenti a little bit, right? Because Captain America says, "This flag is like my skin. I wrap myself in it and believe in its binds. My heart protects me, but sometimes it's a skin I ache to jump out of. Victor is a true American, an immigrant with a dream, an inventor. Like all those good folks that came here and sort of all those nice white people from Europe that came here and, took over everything, right? Mm-hmm. America is all about immigrants with dreams."
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm expecting here yet, but at least an acknowledgement. And we do get that acknowledgement because she will tie it back in. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, she does. Yeah. I mean,
it's solid.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a little bit of an overplay on, that whole immigrant's dream, manifest destiny kind of commentary there. Mm-hmm. At least she acknowledges the native experience in the commentary, though. So
yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's infinitely. I mean, it's the next because Daredevil pines back, right? It's on the next page.
Yeah.
And Daredevil says the Indian believed his source of all authority was the self. They were fiercely independent, and I think that's the place to start the self. But it's still like an oversimplification of the issue, right? We're not really getting into. We get Captain America, immigrants with dreams. That's what makes America. And then Daredevil's like, Indians are independent. Not necessarily, and I think it's a massively oversimplification. It depended on the culture and the group, and so again, but at least I'll give Ann Nocenti, she tries to weave these themes in and get them in for the reader at least,
right?
And now we're back talking to Edith Nora, and she says, "My husband is a special man. I know this will sound crazy, but he listens to his dreams." So more of that American dream sort of notion.
Right.
And she shares that he's not smart enough to necessarily come up with the plans for this. He just stumbled into them.
Oh, he's trying.
And then we get a really cool vision of his dream, and we get every bad guy logo.
Yeah, all the different big oil cars, everything.
And I love how they cut off the logos. So it's like Exxon, but the end's cut off, and Texaco, but the T is cut off, and Shell, but you can't see the last L and part of the S, right? So they can, the Ford, where part of the F's cut off, so they can do this without getting sued theoretically. But I don't really know how they couldn't. I mean, if one of those companies, and then we get a Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, Lee Iacocca's ugly head pops up.
Yeah.
And a Honda in there, which is random.
Right.
That's kind of weird. But anyway, didn't really feel like the Honda one fit in the diatribe, but okay, cool. Anyway, they hear something in the garage, and there's magically, while they were all talking, they didn't hear the garage door open.
No.
70 people walk into the garage with weapons.
And they're just
then we get a pretty sweet Mark Bagley page of superhero poses.
Yeah. It's good.
And we must have changed. Was this Williamson or what? Williamson and Sonoma? Who were writing again?
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely a different artist or different lines.
There's a different inker going on because the facial hair looks like facial hair now.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a thumbprint. It looks good.
And they pose with the light, and they're like, put down those things, and they, for the next several pages, kick the shit out of everybody in the garage.
Yep.
And then the car is destroyed.
No.
And Victor comes in. Oh no, my car. Oh, my car. And Captain America's like, we failed.
Dastard.
And in all this time, Victor pops out. Or no, he's in bed. That's right. He doesn't actually see it. He just knows.
He just knows.
Victor
he can feel
sneaks out of the house.
Connected to the car.
Yeah. He sneaks out of the house, and they assure Nora that nothing's going to hurt Victor. And then the next minute, Victor's on top of the Biggers Furniture Company.
Yeah. Big building.
And he's up there. Big 3-story building.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've ever tried to jump off a building, 1 story, okay. 2 stories, not so great. 3 stories, no.
1 story is probably a little much, honestly, but
I've jumped off a 1-story building.
How'd that go?
It wasn't fun, but it did it.
Well, anyway, there's a bunch of people saying it's the crackpot, the faker, and we've got the media there and everybody, and They're all like, it's the guy who thought his car could fly. And then he jumps off the roof. And he drops the American flag down to Captain America, who saves it from hitting the ground. And he flies away.
Like the Vulture.
And he becomes the Vulture. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's got the whole entire harness, the jet, the everything, the propulsion system.
The harmonics.
The harmonic propulsion system just shrunk down from his car into a little backpack, just like the Vulture.
And Captain America at the bottom grabs the flag and he says, and this is the flag I loved. And that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
It's not a bad standalone story.
No, not a bad standalone story.
I think you're right. Like, I was being a little annoyed earlier, but I probably would want to read more Ann Nocenti Daredevil, right? Just to see what it's all about.
Right.
I know we looked this up before. This was not the regular art team with her either. So this is a standalone. It was a standalone story intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And, it moves us back into the Cap stories we're going to see in a bit.
Right. Yeah.
I think the worst part about this is I wish this was the Captain America story that we were reading.
But it's not.
Like, I wish the nuance was in this that we're seeing here is in the Streets of Poison story. Even if that nuance isn't perfect, right? Like, even if the messaging wasn't perfect, at least we'd see something. Like, the messaging here is not perfect, but it's better. It's substantially better than the messaging we're getting in the others.
Yeah. No, it's good, but it's not. It's sadly not what we get.
Nor his name wasn't Jerkweed.
No.
And we don't have massive.
But that's the thing is, like, I think that they're trying to dehumanize the bad guys. So you get names that are forgettable unless you're Dan and you hyperfixate on their names.
Well, I'm hyperfixing on it because they are being dehumanized, right? It's insulting to the reader.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But I think that their intent as an editorial team is to dehumanize the bad guys and make you not like them.
Drug peddling scum.
Yeah.
But I think the big baddies get names.
Yeah, it's true. And yes, you're right. It does not service the readers as intelligent, or it makes
it also just reads terribly.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't it reads as a joke, right? Like this story does not, right? Like this story reads like a
story. Like, yeah, it's a story.
The other one is it's hard to obviously it's comic books, right? So you're not supposed to necessarily suspend you're supposed to suspend your disbelief, but I can't, right? Like when they're saying they're in fictional New York, right? But people are driving around the streets calling each other jerkweed. It reads like a shitty after school special script.
Right.
Instead of, something I want to read in comics. And as much as I've just finished. I finally got around to it. Howard Chaykin told me to read it like 4 years ago. But I finally got around. I've got the first 3 done. I just finished the first 3 issues of Hey Kids Comics, and he's pointing out that the comic book writers of the 40s, 50s, and 60s were like, those guys are idiots for reading our stuff. But he points out it evolves, right? Like, and all of a sudden that thing that they thought was a joke becomes the culture, right? And in this case, when you're writing cultural commentary, right, I think it's important to be real. I mean, this is why we were deriding the Teen Titans books too, right? Because they weren't real. Where you had the mainline New Teen Titans was trying to be a teenage soap opera, and I'm not saying it's real, but they were trying to address like real issues, right? And what people face as they leave adolescence and go on to be a young adult. And then all of a sudden you get this interlude with these shitty books about the drug war. And here is the same way, right? Like it's almost like we're getting this interlude. Like, again, I don't know what was happening in the Captain America book before this because I didn't go back and read them. Right. And honestly, the letter columns tell us we should be reading them. But nothing in the Grunwald writing is telling me to go back and read those books, right? Like, it wasn't like the Iron Man books where I was like, I'm going to go like read the 6 before this, and I'm going to go read the 4 after, right? Because these are good. This is like, no. But I will say I'll give Ann Nocenti some credit here because it isn't the normal art team, so I won't necessarily credit them. And some of the art in this book is not great, especially the first half of it. The inking's really terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We get some good Captain America chins in it in the first.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the art in it's not great. But, you know, she tells a good story. It's an interesting standalone story. I'd potentially be interested in learning more about the Daredevil character. And I don't really care who these folks on the first page were, or the first, whatever, the people in the woods.
Oh, yeah, the people in the woods. I don't know either. I didn't care before. I didn't care after. So
but
go find out.
But yeah, I mean, good standalone story. But yeah, ultimately, to your point, it falls a little bit flat because of the editorial misses here and just the bad writing in the other book.
Right.
It's not consistent.
No.
So good standalone story. If I just read this if you just handed me this is a standalone and were like, hey, Dan, read this, I would have been like, oh, that's a nice little standalone story. I wonder what was happening before and after, why they needed an interlude story. Cool, but nice cooling off story. But in the Streets of Poison world, this is it's all right. Yeah. It's not consistent, and I'm not excited to read more Streets of Poison at all.
Yeah, like it's not my thing.
But then we're doing a podcast about it, so now I'm going to turn around and tell you should read the Streets of Poison so you can see if we're right.
You should read it because we are told to read it, and we were told to read it because it was so bad. We didn't believe it. Now we're telling you to read it so that you can make up your mind to tell us if you also think it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wondered if something could be as bad as the reports we were saying, and I was just thinking, they're critiquing a 90s comic, but no, it's pretty bad. But I'll say Daredevil 283.
Not bad. Yeah,
not bad. You could read this one. If you want to follow along with us on Streets of Poison, you can pick up Cap 375 and 376.
Yeah, and 77.
And that's the end, right? Like we only have a couple more, right?
There's like 2 more after that.
Please tell me there's 2 more after that. There's like
1
left.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Why? Okay.
Just for you. And then then we were told, and listeners, you tell us what you think. Had a suggestion thrown at us.
No.
Yeah, we had a suggestion thrown at us to read Capwolf, and Dan is not. I think quite possibly if we get enough people hitting us back saying that we should, I think we should go find this Capwolf book.
After reading these Captain America books, the last thing I want to read about is freaking Capwolf, whatever that is.
I mean, Dan says no Capwolf, but to me that means that for real, we should.
I love it when your suggestions are like, Dan doesn't want to do this, so we should definitely do it.
I mean, you might actually turn around and like it. You might find something that you liked that you thought you wouldn't inside the story, and that's usually the case.
Well, I can tell you we've got only 2 more Streets of Poison. Oh, no. I'm such a liar. We have 4 more. Just
4 more. I told you.
375, 376, 377, and 378. So what we have to look forward to in the future are more giant bullseye heads, which one of our listeners pointed out that Bullseye does have a giant head. Oh,
okay. He's got a big head. It's because he's got all them brains in there.
Yeah. So thank you for the social interaction.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a giant head. Well, anyway, I think boy oh boy, I think do you have like another day of Kickstarter here?
So we are we got more days of Supernatural Baby Detective.
How many more days of Starlight do we have?
Starlight by the time this gets out there, unless you put this out, I mean, we're in the final days of Starlight.
Yes,
so final hours.
It's the final day of Starlight.
It's like in the last 50 hours right now, so 3 days.
Okay, so like if you listen to this right away on September 20th, when this is out to our listeners, you could still
back Starlight.
You can also back Supernatural Baby Detective.
Yeah.
And
you should go back both of them.
Kenrick on the Mothership.
Yeah.
Go back both.
Back both.
We will happily. We don't ask for Patreons on this podcast, at least right now.
And we'll tell you to go buy something that you don't really need because you already have a mattress that you're probably sleeping on and enjoying just fine. I'm not going to even
ask you to pledge on Dragon Eye dice on Kickstarter that were pledged on 4 years ago that still haven't been delivered. I wouldn't even ask you to do that. I wouldn't ask you to pledge for Berserker from Boom on Kickstarter. When they deliver all of the Berserker comics to people after, before you get your Kickstarter pledge. I would not ask you to do these things. I would only ask you to back people who actually complete the book and then have it ready to go after you bid on it.
Yeah, go back Starlight, STARLITE, issue number 6. I'm working on number 7 right now with Travis. Just doing some finalized writing on it to make sure it is a great closing issue. But that is
back Supernatural Baby Detective.
Yeah, Supernatural Baby Detective, Kenrick. He did a great job on it. I'm glad to be working with him on it, and you'll get to see me, working with him on the future issues as well. So we're just asking you to go. I'm shilling things that I love because
thinking just mentioning that too, talking about, again, we're not going to be perfect. We may advocate for something that gets messed up along the way, but Alpha Dogs is already on its way to me. I've got issue 4 coming here right now. Alpha so Dogs. I'm super excited about that. Already have the E version, have issue 4. So when we wrap up Streets of Poison, we may wrap up Alpha Dogs because I want to find out what happens in issue 4.
I can't wait to read that.
So yeah, lots of good stuff out there. Keep looking for comics. Look for Marvel, DC. Look for these other things on Kickstarter too. Look for things you'll enjoy and
check them out.
Have a lot of fun with it. And of course, as always, you could always go potentially see Greg, but definitely see Ann at the Retro Emporium on Meeker Street in Kent, Washington. As long as you go there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but don't go there on Monday because Ann will be at home doing Legos. So leave Ann alone on Monday. That's her Lego time.
Yeah, but bring your phone, take a picture in front of the mural that's still there right now. So come and get a picture in front of our mural where our window used to be.
Before it's gone.
Before it's gone, yeah.
Before there's a new window. You have to
Before
go
there's
get
a new window. Yeah, get it while it's there.
And there you go. So you can check that out. And I don't think we have anything big to plug. Our good friend Brett will be at Rose City Comic Con.
Yeah.
And that's this weekend, right?
Yeah, this weekend. So go see him there.
You can go see Brett there and pick up cool prints. And of course, Brett is the artist on Starlight. So if you want to get some, if you didn't, if you aren't backing for some reason, which we encourage you to, but you could also go get some of the past issues from Brett and get them signed.
Yeah, do that.
I would definitely do that. So, and buy 20 more prints from Brett because he's awesome.
Yes.
And he has a reissue of
trying to think, what is he?
Where people burn and
spontaneous
auto burning.
Is it spontaneous?
Spontaneous combustion.
Yes. The book is called Spontaneous, but yes. It's
the book is called Spontaneous. There's a reissue of Spontaneous out if you want to support Brett too.
It's got
new art, new cover.
Redid the art. Some of the art in there. It's actually really, really good. I think he showed us.
Oh, the book's fantastic. The book is fantastic. I read it.
I have it on my shelf.
Reread it recently. Really great book.
Yeah.
So that was the most messed up plugs we've done, but we plugged a whole bunch of stuff. So
we did it.
And you can see how our brain works. And if you ever play that thing again, I'm taking a hammer to it. So I'm Dan, and that's Greg. And this was another episode of Funny Book Forensics. We did some Daredevil. Bye.
Bye. Hit the button.